You're listening to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick in association with Wexford Insurances. Think Wexford Insurances for your business insurance.
Each year, the government spend over €15 billion on procuring goods and services, and last February saw a fundamental change in the way the government will be procuring these in the future, with the launch of the government's Action Plan for Green Public Procurement. Joining me now in studio to discuss this and more is Jonathan Derham from the EPA. But before we do, can you tell me a little bit about your own background, please, Jonathan?
All right. Well, I'm supposed to be a Cork man. I'm a blow into Wexford, about 16 years here in Wexford, and I've been working with the EPA for the same time, based here in the national headquarters in EPA. And I have over 25 years experience working with waste and environmental matters, both here in Ireland and internationally, particularly with industry and businesses.
I know that the Irish government have adopted a green approach to procurement in recent times. What was the route to that change?
This really comes out of a European initiative and obligation, in fact, that every state tries to influence consumption and production behaviours through a number of different processes, one of which is driving change through procurement. So the government will only spend part of this 15 billion on companies that can demonstrate that they have sound, environmentally responsible green credentials as part of their production processes.
From a resource efficiency perspective, how can the EPA help?
Well, we have a number of different programmes aimed at different sectors. For instance, if you're in the hospitality sector, we have the Green Hospitality Award, which is aimed specifically at catering, restaurants, hotels, that sort of sector. We've a new one starting up for farming enterprises and for businesses in general, SMEs and whatever. We have a green business programme, and it's so a company comes to us and they give us information on maybe how much energy they use per annum, or their water bills, their waste bills, and we provide technical advisors who go in and to their facility, whether it's a service or a manufacturing or production business, and they look at what they do, they map how resources are used, and they give the company some recommendations on how they can save money by reducing energy use and water use and reducing waste while maintaining their productivity, or indeed improving their productivity.
Talk me through the process that one of your own assessors would go through if, for instance, it went into an average SME type business.
Well, okay, let's look at a hotel here in Wexford. Came to us, and our assessors went down onto the site, and what they do, their expertise really is looking at material flows. They kind of want to see how water and energy and waste and materials are moving through your process. And they had monitors on the water use throughout the hotel at different points, and they noticed that during the night there was a lot of water use, and that ultimately led to the detection of a number of leaks unknown to the management of the hotel. And by simply fixing those leaks, they save themselves nearly €20,000 a year.
And apart from leaks and systems, what other kind of cost savings have you had experience of business having in relation to water?
Raw material consumption is a big area. So there was a small family-type bakery here in the southeast who our assessors went and had a look at. These are people you bring in voluntarily. Now, the information doesn't come to the EPA. We don't hold this information. It's just private. Our assessors are private consultants outside of EPA. So it's a private arrangement between you and them. And we don't get the detail. We just pay for it, So we're the facilitator, so to speak. But they went to this small family bakery and looked at how materials were flowing through. And they noticed that the company were spending a lot on waste. There was very heavy waste, and when they went into it, they noticed that there was one particular raw material they were buying, and the emptying process was quite a manual process, where a chap came in and he kind of scooped out what was in these drums, and they noticed that nearly 15 or 20% of the raw material was left in the drums. So they had bought that, they didn't empty the drum completely, and they were paying for it as a waste. And by simply changing that cleaning and drum emptying and process, they saved themselves thousands of euros a year, through raw material wastage and waste prevention.
Under resource efficiency, you mentioned that your programme looks at waste, water and energy. From a waste production, where are you seeing most of the savings coming from there across the county?
Well, I suppose the classic one is food production. We're a very big food producing nation from our agri-business, and we're also, big food consumers. And we waste about 30% of the food we buy. And also in our production processes, we're quite wasteful in how we produce food. So we're spending a lot of time investing effort and advice in helping people become more efficient in how they produce food-based products to reduce the wastage there, and in how they consume it. Because, if somebody is buying food and then, they throw it away, they're not just throwing away what they've bought there. A farmer put fertilizer on it, somebody tilled a field, somebody drove it through the production factory, and then more energy was used in preparing it into a product, and eventually someone drove to the supermarket to buy it and then brought it home. And if they just threw it in the bin, they're not just throwing away that, they're throwing away the whole chain all the way along. So it's not good business sense, and it's not good personal consumption sense.
From a water perspective, you mentioned earlier on leaks, and I know that the water infrastructure in this country is very, very old, and there is massive issues in relation to it. What advice would you give to business owners out there that would have, let's say, quite a high water bill and would be concerned that there could be leaks in their own system?
It's very easy. You can get these little water meters that you can sit on pipes. In fact, they can measure flow through and usage without drilling a hole or anything. They just clamp on. They use it through sound. And so you can divide up your process, try map out where water is being used through your process. I
know the other big area there that is costing businesses a lot of money is energy and energy costs. What are your top tips for helping people save money on energy?
So most of the business, what we're trying to do with this resource efficiency, and resource efficiency, if one wants to ask them, what is it? It's energy efficiency, it's water use efficiency, it's waste prevention, and it's cleaner production. From an energy point of view, most of what we're doing in our resource efficiency program would be low or no cost investment. And so we look for low or no cost investment for people. So the simplest thing would be to go for low energy use lighting. You can save thousands, and the payback period in many cases, there might be a small upfront, but the payback period is less than 12 months in the majority of these cases. And these are perfectly good lighting systems for large factory floors, or whether you're a small retail unit or whatever. There's a lot of money to be saved.
As you say, a very, very small change in relation to temperature and bars and everything else, but certainly a significant saving in terms of cost.
Oh, absolutely. And even people who would have air conditioning units, there's a very good case examples where people put a temperature probe on their air conditioning unit. So their air conditioning unit just doesn't function at the same rate every year. It takes in the ambient temperature. So if it's cool outside, it'll reduce its effort and its burden. Or if it's warm outside, it'll move with the temperature. So putting a temperature related control with air conditioning unit can save you thousands.
Do the EPA provide any grant aid to businesses?
Yes, I mentioned there that resource efficiency kind of dealt with water, waste and energy, but there's a fourth element, which is what we call cleaner production. This is an area of work where we're not just looking at making people lean and how they operate and using resources more efficiently. It's actually to change their production processes in a way, give them some advice on to be less polluting. Now, we have recently launched a call for grant aid. So any business who is interested in saying, well, look, I have a good idea to make a more environmentally sound product, or to change my process to become more environmentally sound, we can give them grant aid. There's 40,000 euros available there, up to 40,000 euros for a company. And one example we of this sort of business, we had a company in just north of Wexford there in Wicklow. They made wrappings for bread, for all, and they made the wrapping for a lot of the big bread producers, and they had used a solvent-based ink for years, which was expensive to buy. It created a health difficulty, a challenge, not a difficult challenge for the workers. And also it was an expensive waste at the end of the day. So they got seed money from us through this grant aid to investigate and pilot water-based inks, proved its stability, got their ultimate purchasers, clients, to green it. And for that small seed capital, they changed over to water-based inks. Their clients were happy, their workers were happy, they were happy, and we were delighted, of course, because solvent is environmentally quite a challenging substance. So getting the solvent out of the way was a good thing environmentally, win-win. And just to provide clarity in relation to the grant aid for people looking at cleaner production ideas, it's provided on a matched funding basis. So we will fund up to 50% of the cost of the project. But a company can put in their labour costs and time costs, how they build all those costs. But we will check it out, and if we're satisfied that this is a good idea and the cost structure has been put together fairly, we'll certainly engage with the company if it's a good idea and give the grant aid.
Tell me about some of the economic opportunities.
To summarise, if I was, facing a business person now, what's in it for them? Why should they do it? There's going to be lower overheads. That's really the ambition of the project for a company. Greater productivity. Maximise your productivity from raw materials. There's a marketing advantage. The more efficient you are, the lower your overheads. That gives you a clear advantage in the market. And if you are a green accredited company, that gives you also a marketing advantage. It's not just the government who have a sort of ethical purchasing. If you have green credentials, it might give you an advantage when selling services and products into businesses here in the southeast. And there's a public investor perception as well. So a lot of people who are investors in companies like the idea of an ethical, responsible company, so you can keep shareholders happy as well. Not only there for the enterprise, but there's actually also opportunities for innovators. So these are people who would provide green services into companies. So you might have somebody who's an IT solution person who would design a piece of software to help a company map its energy use or map its water use and keep track of it. And give a company some intel on how they're using this information. Process redesign for clever entrepreneurial engineers who want to rejig processes to make them more efficient or to eliminate polluting materials. For new technology, these are the innovators who are just going to replace polluting materials or unsustainable technology with cleaner technologies. There's innovations there. Also in training as well and education, there's a whole cohort of foremen, production managers, designers and everything working in business who need training and need to be made aware of the business potential and also the obligations in sort of a greener, more environmentally sustainable approach to their production processes, because it's the only way into the future that they're going to survive economically.
Well, from what you're saying, there seems to be wide-ranging opportunities in the environmental sector. Thanks very much for joining me this morning and providing our listeners with such useful information regarding the EPA's range of free services.
You're listening to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick in association with Wexford Insurances. Think Wexford Insurances for your business insurance.